Today we take a step back and work on a tiny little terrarium build in diorama mode for Planet Zoo. This was a super fun challenge that I implore all of you guys to try out, and we even got to house the Caracal from the Grasslands animal pack too. Without further ado, let's get started. So we get started over here by starting off with, of course, Leaf. We get started off by working in a square to get started off. Okay, I gotta stop. It's been a while since I've done a video, I'm sorry. But anyways, my whole idea for this was to have this nice suspended, not really, I guess, diamond shaped. I'm not really sure. It's definitely a cube, but it's on its side. Is that still a cube? I'm sure it still is. So nonetheless, I was just trying to get set up with this and figure out what I wanted to get out of this, because I had this vision in my head for a square terrarium, but it was on its sides so that the ground would be kind of level with it, if that makes sense, and it's kind of like just sitting on an angle. You could see me trying to do that with the mulch pieces over here, but it really didn't turn out too well. So I actually ended up using terrain, which was a huge challenge. It was a huge pain in the butt, pretty much. And you can actually see me doing, speaking of pain, glass panes, of course. So we're kind of plopping these down every so often, just making sure that they're evenly dispersed on all sides. Doing that all into one big cube and then just kind of taking it off from there. But the main challenge I really wanted to do with these was just figure out how to get the sand in here. But eventually I was able to do this and actually use the axis tool, which I never really used for placing down these terrain stamps. I feel like terrain stamps are so underutilized by Planet Zoo creators. They really are just, they're the bee's knees, if that term is still being used today. Nonetheless, I kind of clean that up a little bit more and just make it feel a little bit more organic. I try and bring up the foliage, not the foliage, but the terrain on the backside, just have it feel a little bit more organic. Have like the sand feel like it's been played with, it's been lived in, yada yada yada. I should also mention no mods were used in this build, not even free builds. So Frontier, if you're looking for something to tweet out on like a Mega Monday or something, I'm your guy over here. I got you guys. But I really wanted this to have a nice black background over here, just a little bit of a frame. And then I was like, at first, I was kind of like, ooh, what if we have like this nice blue background in here? Wouldn't that be so cool? But I really don't like it. I actually took it out towards the end. But yeah, I don't know. I think it works in the end. You can see once we actually do get started on the scenery in here, it really does kick it up a notch. But before that, I really wanted to make sure that I got pretty much the infrastructure of the terrarium done itself. So I get to work on, these little faux rock pieces down here. So obviously when you guys have a terrarium, as I'm sure many of you guys probably do at home, probably not all of you, but I know a lot of animal lovers definitely have some. But once you're working with terrariums, or even aquariums for that matter, you're going to want to have different substrate in here just to create a more organic life system. And part of that includes using these bigger pebbles, really. So I'm using the faux rock pieces, of course these beautiful little rock clusters. Always do love to use these guys, along with random rotation and kind of just putting them all throughout there. And just making sure that they're all showing to the best of their abilities without clipping outside of that glass. That's going to be a nice balancing act that we kind of have going on in here. And it's just super fun. What I tried to do over here, I really wasn't sure what I was going for at this point of the speed build. As of recording this today, I did finish it up with like the best idea in mind. You'll see it in a little bit, but over here I just wanted to throw in a few different rocks and stuff like that. Just a nice, easy way to create a little bit of a dynamic background. And it really comes together in the end. I don't know, it sets up like a nice little focal point. And I was like, if we're building for the Caracal, I gotta have a little pyramid back here. Caracals are found, believe it or not, all over kind of like scrubland and deserts of Asia and Africa, mostly northern Africa stretching into India. It's kind of like a honey badger situation. It's kind of like a striped hyena situation. It's very cool just to see the lengths that these animals are able to spread to. It's always so interesting to me, especially with caracals, hyenas, honey badgers, just how much of that fauna especially mammals. Birds are one thing because they can fly, but how many of these mammals can actually stretch all the way from Africa to Asia? Because when you think about it, it's a really, really big kind of gap in between there. It's very interesting to see just how these populations are able to sustain themselves and just stuff like that. I don't know, it's just super cool like that. Nevertheless, we're putting down some real rocks in here, the desert rocks, just as a way to create a little bit more color, and I get started by throwing in some animals in here. I often get comments like, Leaf, how are your animals alive when you put them in the dioramas? Where do you place the trade center? And that's really the easiest thing in the world to do. You just put down the habitat gate, you just put down the trade center, and then after you get your animals in there, you just delete it. You don't need to keep it up there. The animals will just stay in that habitat just as long as, you know, they can be unboxed and stuff like that. But that's really it. It's super, super easy. But moving on from there, this was where, like, my brain blast moment came in. I was like, maybe we should have some sand pouring out of here. But obviously, if you see it in the thumbnail, or if you came here through Reddit or the forums or something like that, you'll know what we do with that in the end. But before we actually do get to that point, I was like, okay, I want a chain over here. I want this to feel like it's part of a greater idea. And because of that, I was like, okay, I've seen many of these hanging terrariums in the past. I kind of want to make one in Planet Zoo because I can't put one in my own room over here. I can't take care of plants, even though my name is Leaf, which is very ironic. I don't really have the best green thumb. I have my herb garden outside, that's pretty much it, but that's probably just because they're not really too hard to take care of. But you can see I'm kind of struggling over here figuring out how to actually anchor this down. But eventually I was like, what if we just, you know, fill out that rest of that circle so that it's kind of like on the other side. I don't really know. And then it looks perfect in the end. We add a couple of circle art shapes right below those two, just so it feels like it hooks onto something in terms of the greater terrarium. And then it actually looks so good in the end. I don't know. I just really like it. It's super nice. So moving on from here, I was like, okay, I do like the fact that some of the glass isn't there, but I wanted to at least have it feel a little bit more solid, so I have that one single beam of glass going across it, and then I connect it up with some other beams throughout here, just to give it a little bit more of a salad backbone. Yeah, delicious. Backbone salad. Who wouldn't want some of that? But no, a little bit more of a solid backbone just to help it feel a little bit more coherent. And then I get started on the habitat itself, if you could even call it that. So I'm making my good use out of these bristlecone pine trees. I never really used these to begin with because they are so hyper stylized, but that kind of works in diorama mode. I've noticed that many times dioramas, you can have a lot of fun with them. And that's honestly my little escape from the world of realism in Planet Zoo. As you guys probably know, I very much love to build realistically. Not as realistic as some people like Caesar or Leader, but I do like to have a lot of fun with it. And I like to imply it. And sometimes that gets a little bit too much. Those are those little anchor points I was talking about earlier. But this is why I love dioramas, and this is why I love making little diorama mode projects. It's just because I get to flex muscles that I'm not really using whenever I'm building in, say, for example, Zoo Sarasota, even Hope Harbor Zoo. As ridiculous as it is to have Hope Harbor Zoo be located on an island in Maine, open year-round, there's some things that we take our L's on, but still, I just like to build a little bit more silly like this. It's super fun just to be able to do something like this. In fact, I kind of want to do this in Prehistoric Kingdom. I feel like that'd be a super fun little diorama to do. But we can see I am adding these little kind of plants all throughout here. So I'm using the saltwort bushes and the chrysote. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I know people tell me every single time, but then I always forget. Please just remind me again. I'm so sorry, guys. So I'm using a few of those guys all throughout here as a way to kind of create a little bit more of a liveliness to this build. Maybe it's like these little air plants are kind of growing on this terrarium, and I don't know, it's just super awesome just to be able to have something like that. And I'm kind of experimenting with it a little bit more and just trying to figure out how I could use that in a different diorama. I have another diorama too coming up. I just gotta, you know, solidify what I want to get out of it. But it's hoping to be a repeat of one of my more famous last ones. Which, by the way, in case if you guys did send support to the Grand Canyon diorama, thank you so much. That is like my most viewed video now. So that's just really awesome to see. But regardless, we are pretty much done with this, just adding in some final details. So I do want to stop and thank you guys for even stopping by in the first place. You guys are always so supportive as of recently, and it's just so great to see. Make sure to drop a like. Make sure to drop a comment if you can. It really does help me out, especially with that silly little algorithm. As ridiculous as it is, I really do depend on YouTube for just a little bit of extra funds just to have in the pocket. If you guys drop a like on the video and watch it all the way through, you help contribute to my dates, so that's really awesome just to be able to have. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you all in the next episode. Take care and have the most wonderful of wonderful days. Goodbye now.